Chaos erupted in the restaurant. Everyone screamed and ran. Everyone except the waitress, who stayed calm, shielded a child, and saved a dying man's life. The Mafia boss couldn't stop staring. He'd never seen someone move through danger like she'd done it before. And he wasn't letting her disappear. The gunshot shattered the wine glass before Clara Evans even registered the sound. She'd been pouring a 1995 Barolo, the expensive kind that tourists ordered to impress their dates, when the front window exploded inward. Glass rained down like deadly confetti. A woman in a red dress screamed. Then another. Then everyone. Except Clara. Her body moved on autopilot. She dropped the bottle, letting $300 worth of wine splash across the marble floor and dove behind the bar. Her heart hammered, but her hands were steady. Muscle memory from a life she'd left behind. More shots. Pop, pop, pop. Rapid fire. Semi-automatic, her brain registered automatically. At least 3 shooters. Get down, someone roared. Through the chaos, Clara's eyes found the source of the order. A man in a charcoal suit sat at table 7, the VIP section she'd been told never to approach unless summoned. Adrian Moretti. She'd served him twice before. He tipped well, spoke softly, and had eyes like winter. Now those eyes were sharp and lethal. His men were already moving, guns appearing from shoulder holsters like magic tricks. But the attackers had the element of surprise. One of Moretti's guards went down, clutching his throat. Blood sprayed across the white tablecloth. A child's cry cut through the gunfire. Clara's head snapped toward the sound. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, stood frozen near the kitchen doors. Her parents were face down under their table, but she'd wandered out, confused and terrified. The shooters were advancing. Black masks. Leather jackets. Moving like professionals. Clara didn't think. She launched herself from behind the bar, staying low, and grabbed the child. A bullet whizzed past her ear. So close she felt the heat of it. She tucked the girl against her chest and rolled behind a marble column. "Shh, baby, I've got you," Clara whispered, even as her ears rang. "Close your eyes.
Count to 10.
Can you do that for me?" The girl nodded, squeezing her eyes shut. Another body hit the floor. One of the attackers this time. Moretti's men were fighting back now, and the restaurant had become a war zone. Overturned tables. Shattered plates. The smell of gunpowder mixing with expensive cologne. Then Clara saw him. An older man, one of the dinner guests, was crawling toward the exit. He was leaving a trail of blood. Gut shot, Clara's training told her. He had maybe 10 minutes if the bleeding wasn't stopped. The little girl was safe behind the column. Clara made a choice. She ripped off her apron, bunched it up, and low-crawled across the floor. Bullets sparked off the marble above her head. Someone was shouting in Italian. She reached the man just as his eyes started to glaze. "Hey, stay with me." Clara pressed the apron against his abdomen, bearing down hard. The man gasped, his eyes focusing on her face. "W2.
I'm Clara.
You're going to be fine. Keep pressure here." She guided his shaking hands to hold the makeshift bandage. "Don't you dare die in my section. I just cleaned this floor." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. That's when she felt it, the weight of a stare. Clara looked up through the smoke and chaos, and her eyes locked with Adrian Moretti's. He was 15 feet away, behind an overturned table, his white shirt stained crimson from a wound on his shoulder. His gun was raised, aimed at one of the attackers. But he wasn't firing. He was looking at her. At the waitress who should have been screaming, who should have been running, who was instead saving one of his men with nothing but an apron and sheer will. Their eyes held for 3 seconds, maybe 4. In that moment, Clara saw something flicker across his face. Not gratitude, not surprise. Something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Like he'd just discovered something rare in a world full of counterfeit. Then his lieutenant shouted, "Boss, you're 6. Moretti spun and fired. The attacker behind him dropped. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it started. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The masked men retreated, disappearing through the shattered front entrance, like shadows. Clara kept pressure on the wounded man's abdomen until she heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, deliberate. "Let me see him." She looked up. Moretti stood over her, his shoulder wound still bleeding, his expression unreadable. Up close, she could see his eyes weren't just gray. They were the color of steel.
Cold.
Calculating. Missing nothing. "He needs a hospital," Clara said calmly. "Bullet still in there. Maybe nicked his intestine." "You a doctor?" "I know enough." Moretti tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. His men were securing the room, checking bodies, but he didn't move. Didn't look away from her. "What's your name?" "Clara Evans." "You didn't scream, Clara Evans." It wasn't a question. More like an accusation. She met his gaze without flinching. Would that have helped? Something almost resembling a smile touched his lips. Almost. Then the paramedics burst through the door, and the moment shattered. Moretti straightened, his mask of control slamming back into place. He barked orders in Italian, and his men moved like a well-oiled machine. Before Clara could stand, he looked down at her one last time. "You saved Marco's life tonight," he gestured to the man she'd been helping. "I don't forget debts." Then he was gone, swept away by his security team just as the police flooded in. Clara sat back on her heels, her hands covered in someone else's blood, her uniform ruined. The little girl was crying in her mother's arms. Witnesses were giving statements. The restaurant looked like a battlefield. But all Clara could think about was those steel-gray eyes. And the certainty that her quiet, invisible life had just ended. She'd stayed calm during an ambush. And the most dangerous man in the city had noticed. Adrian Moretti didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse office, 30 floors above the city, with a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched and a shoulder wound he'd refused to let anyone treat properly. The doctors had wanted to sedate him. He'd sent them away. Outside, the city lights blinked like dying stars. Inside, his mind replayed the same 3 seconds on loop. Her face.
Calm.
Focused. Unafraid. "Boss, you should rest." Marco stood in the doorway, his arm in a sling, looking pale but alive. Doctor said. "Find her."
Marco blinked.
"Sir?" "The waitress." Clara Evans. Adrian took a slow sip of whiskey, finally. "It burned. I want everything. Where she lives. Where she's from. Who she talks to. Everything." "You think she was part of it?" Marco's voice hardened. The Valentino family could have planted her there. Could have been feeding them information for weeks. Adrian considered this. It made sense. Too much sense. The attack had been perfectly timed, right when his entire inner circle was dining together. Someone had talked. But that look in her eyes. "Just find her," Adrian said quietly. "By morning." Marco didn't need until morning. By 4 a.m., a manila folder landed on Adrian's desk. Clara Marie Evans. Age 28. Born in Ohio. No criminal record. Adrian flipped through the documents, his eyes scanning quickly. High school dropout. Moved to the city 3 years ago. Current employment. La Scala restaurant, 6 months. Previous jobs, 2 diners, a hospital cafeteria. Nothing remarkable. Nothing suspicious. But then he reached the last page and stopped. A hospital record. Repeated visits to St. Catherine's Medical Center, oncology wing. Always the same patient name. Daniel Evans. Age 16. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Her brother. "She's clean, boss," Marco said. No connections to any families. No criminal ties. Just a woman working double shifts to pay medical bills. He paused. "She's nobody." Adrian stared at the photo clipped to the file. A DMV picture. Clara looked tired in it, her dark hair pulled back, no makeup. Ordinary. Forgettable. Except she wasn't. Put surveillance on her, Adrian ordered. I want to know where she goes, who she talks to. If she sneezes, I want to know about it.
Marcos shifted uncomfortably.
Boss, with all respect.
Why?
She's saved my life. She's just a civilian who got caught in the crossfire. Adrian closed the folder slowly. People don't stay calm during ambushes, Marco. They panic. They freeze. They die. He looked up, his gray eyes sharp. She moved like someone who'd seen combat before. Someone trained. Her file says... I don't care what her file says. Find out what it's not saying. Clara knew she was being followed. The black sedan had been parked across from her apartment for 2 days. Different drivers, same car. They weren't even trying to hide it. She'd expected this. Men like Adrian Moretti didn't let loose ends dangle. She'd broken pattern during the ambush, done things a normal waitress wouldn't do, and now she was paying for it. Stupid. So stupid. She pushed through the hospital doors, exhausted from another sleepless night. The fluorescent lights made her headache worse. She signed in at the desk and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Room 304. Always room 304. Daniel was awake, playing a video game on a tablet someone had donated. He looked up when she entered, and his face lit up despite the 4 in his arm and the hollowness in his cheeks. Clara, you're early. Couldn't sleep. She sat in the chair beside his bed, the one she'd worn smooth over months of visits. How you feeling? Like $1 million, he grinned, then winced. Okay, maybe like $5. But inflation, you know? She forced a smile. 16 years old and cracking jokes, while his body ate itself from the inside. He was braver than she'd ever been. Doctor said the new treatment's working. Daniel continued, putting down the tablet. Said if we can keep it up for 6 more months, I might actually, he stopped, his optimism faltering. We can afford it, right? Clara's throat tightened. The bill on his bedside table said otherwise. $47,000 for the next round of treatment. Her savings account had $3,200. Don't worry about that, she said softly. I've got it handled. You always say that. Because I always mean it. He studied her face, too perceptive for a kid. You look tired. You working too much. I fine, Denny. You're lying. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her click accept. Clara Evans? A man's voice.
Smooth.
Professional. Who's asking? A friend would like to meet with you.
Tonight.
Regarding the incident at La Scala, her blood went cold. I already gave my statement to the police. This isn't about the police, a pause. Mr. Moretti would like to thank you personally for saving his man's life. Clara's hand tightened on the phone. Daniel was watching her, concerned. I don't need thanks. Nevertheless, a car will pick you up at 8. Your address is... I know my own address, she hung up. Daniel frowned. Who was that? Telemarketer, the lie came easily. Too easily. But her mind was racing. Adrian Moretti wanted to meet, which meant he'd already investigated her. Already knew about Danny, about the bills, about everything. And men like him never did anything without a reason. She looked at her brother, still so young, still fighting so hard to live. Whatever Moretti wanted, she'd face it. She'd survived worse than powerful men with dangerous questions. At least, that's what she told herself. The black car arrived at exactly 8 p.m. Clara had spent the day debating whether to run. Pack a bag, grab Danny, disappear into another city with another name. She'd done it before. But running required money. And money was the one thing she didn't have. So when the driver knocked on her apartment door, polite, professional, terrifying, she followed him down to the waiting Mercedes without a word. They didn't take her to a restaurant or an office. They took her home. Her own apartment building. The driver opened her door, gestured for her to exit, and drove away. Clara stood on the sidewalk, confused, until she saw him. Adrian Moretti sat on the front steps of her building like he belonged there.
No bodyguards.
No visible weapons. Just a man in an expensive navy coat, hands in his pockets, looking almost normal. You came, he said, standing. Did I have a choice? There's always a choice, he gestured to the steps. May I come up? Or would you prefer to talk out here? Clara's mind raced. Letting a mafia boss into her apartment was insane. But talking on the street where neighbors could see was worse. Third floor, she said finally. And wipe your feet. Her apartment was small. One bedroom, a kitchen the size of a closet, furniture from thrift stores. Adrian took it all in with those calculating gray eyes, but his expression revealed nothing. Clara didn't offer him a seat. She crossed her arms and waited. You saved Marco's life, Adrian said simply. That deserves recognition. I did what anyone would do.
No.
You didn't. He moved closer, and Clara fought the urge to step back. Most people would have run. You assessed the situation, provided medical care under fire, and kept a child safe. That's not civilian behavior, Ms. Evans. There it was. The real reason for his visit. I took a first aid class, Clara said evenly. At the community center. You took more than that. He pulled a folded paper from his coat. Want to tell me about your 4 years in the army? Or should I read your redacted service record myself? Clara's stomach dropped. She'd buried that life deep. Changed her name from Claire to Clara.
Moved 3 times.
Built a wall between who she was and who she'd become. And he'd torn through it in 48 hours. That's classified, she managed. Not to people who know where to look. Adrian unfolded the paper. Claire Sullivan. Army medic. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Honorable discharge after. He paused, his eyes lifting to hers. After your entire unit was killed in an ambush. You were the only survivor. The room tilted. Clara gripped the back of a chair. Get out. You were awarded a Bronze Star for pulling 3 wounded soldiers out of a kill zone while under heavy fire. Then you disappeared. Adrian's voice was softer now, almost gentle. Changed your name. Started over. Why? Because dead soldiers don't need medals. They need to stay dead, her voice cracked. Now get out of my apartment. I'm not here to hurt you, Clara. Then why are you here? Adrian folded the paper, tucked it away. When he spoke again, his tone was businesslike.
Direct.
I'm offering you a job. Of all the things Clara expected, that wasn't it. Excuse me? My organization needs a medic. Someone discreet. Someone skilled. Someone who doesn't panic when things go sideways, he met her eyes. Someone like you. I don't work for criminals. You work for whoever pays your brother's hospital bills. The words hit like a slap. Clara's hands curled into fists. Don't you dare. Daniel needs 6 more months of treatment. That's $280,000 you don't have. Adrian's voice remained calm. Factual. I checked. Your insurance maxed out. You're drowning in debt. And that kid is dying while you serve wine to rich people who don't remember your name. You don't know anything about. I know everything. He pulled an envelope from his inside pocket and placed it on her coffee table. That's a receipt. St. Catherine's Medical Center. Daniel Evans. Next 3 months of treatment. Paid in full. Clara stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. Consider it a thank you, Adrian continued. For Marco. No strings attached. There are always strings. Not this time. He moved toward the door, then paused. But if you want to work off the debt, make sure your brother gets the full 6 months he needs. My offer stands. Personal medic. You patch up my people. No questions asked. You keep your head down, do your job, and Danny gets to live. Clara's throat was tight. Her eyes burned. I've killed people, Adrian said quietly, his hand on the doorknob. I've destroyed families. I've done things that would keep you awake at night. But I keep my word. Always. He looked back at her. Think about it. You have until Monday. Then he was gone. Clara collapsed onto her couch, her hands shaking. She picked up the envelope with trembling fingers and opened it. The receipt was real. 3 months. $141,000.
Paid.
She thought about Danny's smile. about his stupid jokes and his terrible video game skills, and the way he pretended not to be scared when the pain got bad. She thought about the men she'd killed overseas, the blood on her hands that never quite washed away. And she realized Adrian Moretti had just made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Not because he threatened her, but because he'd given her hope. And hope, Clara knew, was the most dangerous weapon of all. Clara reported to the address Monday morning with a duffel bag of medical supplies and a stomach full of regret. The estate sat 20 minutes outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and manicured hedges. It looked like a resort. Private, elegant, expensive. Nothing like the criminal fortress she'd imagined. A man with a scar across his jaw met her at the door. "You the medic?" "Clara Evans." "Tony. I'll show you around." He didn't offer to shake hands. "Boss says you're here to patch us up, not make friends." "Works for me." The medical room was actually a converted wine cellar. Stainless steel tables, industrial lighting, cabinets stocked with supplies that definitely hadn't been purchased legally. Morphine, surgical equipment, antibiotics by the case. "You'll work down here," Tony said. "Someone gets shot, they come to you. You fix them. You don't ask questions. You don't talk to cops. You don't exist. Clear?" "Crystal." "Good." He turned to leave, then stopped. "And stay away from the boss. He's got enough distractions." Clara spent the first day organizing supplies and pretending she hadn't just sold her soul. Her first patient arrived at 2 a.m. A young guy, maybe 25, stumbled in with a knife wound in his side. Not deep, but bleeding heavily. His friend held him upright, both of them drunk and stupid. "Fix him," the friend demanded.
Clara didn't respond.
She guided the injured man onto the table, cut away his shirt, and assessed the damage. "Clean slice. Missed the organs.
Lucky."
"This needs stitches." "How'd it happen?" "Don't ask questions," the friend snapped. Clara looked up slowly. "I need to know if the blade was dirty. If it was rusty. If I need to worry about infection or tetanus. So either answer me, or watch your friend die of sepsis in 3 days." The friend's mouth opened.
Closed.
"Bar fight. Switchblade. Clean, I think." "You think or you know?" "I know. It was clean." Clara nodded and got to work. Cleaned the wound, numbed the area, began stitching. Her hands moved with practiced precision. 17 stitches. Bandaged. Antibiotics injected. Keep it dry. Change the dressing twice a day. If it gets hot or starts smelling, come back immediately. The injured man blinked at her.
"You're
really good at this." "I've had practice." They left without thanking her. She didn't expect them to. Over the next 3 weeks, Clara became a fixture in the basement. Gunshot wounds. Stab wounds. Broken bones. Burns. She treated them all with the same clinical efficiency she'd used overseas. The men tested her at first, made crude jokes, left bloody messes for her to clean, called her nurse and sweetheart, and worse things in Italian. Clara ignored them. She wasn't here to be liked. But slowly something shifted. When she said a dislocated shoulder, painful, precise, without flinching at the man's screams, they noticed. When she worked 18 hours straight during a gang war without complaining, they noticed. When she told a made man to stop being a baby about a bullet graze, and he actually listened, they noticed. Respect in the Mafia wasn't given. It was earned in blood and silence. Clara was earning hers. She saw Adrian only twice in those 3 weeks. The first time, he came down to check on Marco, who was recovering from his restaurant injury. Clara was changing his bandages when Adrian appeared in the doorway. "How is he?" "Healing well. No infection. He'll have full mobility in another week." Adrian nodded, watching her work. "You're efficient. That's what you're paying for." "I'm paying for discretion. The efficiency is a bonus." Clara tied off the bandage and stepped back. Marco thanked her quietly. She nodded and moved to clean her instruments, hyper-aware of Adrian's presence behind her. "You don't fear them?" Adrian observed. My men. Should I? Most people do. Clara turned, meeting his eyes. Most people haven't seen what I've seen. Something flickered in his expression. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. What did you see, Clara? The question was soft. Almost kind. It caught her off guard. Things that made your restaurant ambush look like a birthday party, she said quietly. Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. If you need anything, better equipment, different supplies, tell Tony. You'll have it.
Ivy fine.
That's what everyone says when they're drowning. He moved toward the door, then paused. There's a guest room upstairs. East wing. Sometimes we work late. You're welcome to use it. I prefer going home. I prefer my medic well-rested. It wasn't a suggestion. After he left, Marco chuckled weakly from the table. He likes you. He likes that I'm useful. No, Marco's eyes were knowing. He likes that you're not afraid of him. Nobody treats the boss like he's normal. Clara busied herself with inventory. Well, he's not normal. He's a criminal. So were you once.
Soldier.
Killer. What's the difference? Clara's hand stilled on a bottle of antiseptic. The difference, she said softly, is I had orders. He just has choices. But even as she said it, she wondered if that was true. That night, she did stay. Not in the guest room. She wasn't ready for that. But in the medical room, on a cot she'd set up in the corner. At 3 a.m., she woke to screaming. Not pain. Terror. Clara grabbed a flashlight and followed the sound upstairs. Past the kitchen. Past the library. To a massive door at the end of the hall. Adrian's room. The screaming stopped, then started again.
Hoarse. Broken.
Clara's hand hovered over the doorknob. This wasn't her business. This wasn't her job. But she'd heard screams like that before. In field hospitals. In the dark. From soldiers whose wounds weren't visible. She opened the door. Adrian sat upright in bed, drenched in sweat, his eyes wide and unseeing. Not awake. Not asleep. Trapped somewhere in between. Clara approached slowly.
Adrian.
He didn't respond. His breathing was ragged. She touched his shoulder gently.
Adrian.
You're safe. You're home. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist, tight, painful. His eyes focused on her face, wild with fear and fury. Then slowly he saw her. Really saw her. Clara, you were dreaming. His grip loosened. He looked down at her wrist, at the red marks his fingers had left, and released her immediately.
I'm sorry.
I didn't. He ran a hand through his damp hair. You should go. When did they start? The nightmares. That's none of your concern. You hired a medic. This is medical. Adrian laughed, sharp, bitter. You can't fix what's in my head.
No.
But I can listen. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression cracked. Just a hairline fracture. But it was there. I'm tired, he whispered. Not to her. To himself. I'm so tired of being feared. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining careful distance. Then stop being fearsome, she said simply. I don't know how. For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian Moretti looked human. Vulnerable.
Lost.
Neither did I, Clara admitted. But we learn. They sat in silence until dawn. The docks smelled like oil and dead fish. Clara hated everything about this place. The rusted shipping containers, the suspicious absence of security, the way Adrian's men checked their weapons like they expected war. You didn't have to come, Adrian said, adjusting his cufflinks. Even at a smuggling deal, he dressed like he was attending the opera. You have 6 men with pre-existing injuries. If this goes bad, you'll need a medic. Clara shouldered her medical bag. That's literally my job. Your job is in the basement. Safe. Nothing about working for you is safe. He almost smiled at that. Almost. The past month had changed things between them. After that night, after the nightmare, Adrian stopped avoiding her. He'd come to the medical room with excuses. checking on wounded men, reviewing supply costs, asking about procedures. But they both knew the truth. He was checking on her. And she was letting him. Stay in the car, Adrian ordered. If shooting starts, you drive away. Understood?
No.
Clara. If shooting starts, your men will need immediate care. The difference between life and death is measured in minutes. You know this, she met his eyes. I don't run anymore, Adrian. I thought you understood that. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he'd argue. Instead, he nodded once and walked toward the warehouse. Clara followed, her heart hammering but her hands steady. The deal started smoothly. 12 crates of imported electronics, definitely not electronics, exchanged for briefcases of cash. Adrian's contact was a thin man with a Russian accent and dead eyes. They spoke in low tones while Clara waited by the entrance, trying to look invisible. That's when she felt it. The shift in the air. The way Tony's hand drifted toward his weapon. The sudden tension in Adrian's shoulders. She'd felt this before. Right before an IED exploded. Right before bullets tore through canvas tents. Adrian, she started. The warehouse doors exploded inward. Men in black tactical gear poured in like a flood. Not police. Rivals. The same crew from the restaurant, she realized with cold certainty. It's a setup.
Marcos shouted.
Gunfire erupted. Clara dropped and rolled behind a concrete pillar. Her medical bag spilled. Bandages, syringes, antiseptic scattered across dirty concrete. She grabbed what she could, shoving supplies into her pockets. Adrian was pinned down behind a crate, returning fire. His men were scattered, outnumbered. The Russian contact was already dead, slumped against the wall in a spreading pool of red. Then she saw him. Tony, 20 feet away, crawling, trailing blood. He'd been shot in the leg, femoral artery, her brain registered automatically. 2 minutes, maybe 3, before he bled out. No one else saw him. Everyone was focused on staying alive. Clara made a choice. She sprinted from cover, staying low, zigzagging between containers. Bullets sparked off metal above her head. Someone shouted.
She didn't stop.
She reached Tony, grabbed his jacket, and dragged him backward. He was heavy, dead weight, nearly unconscious. Her muscles screamed. Her lungs burned. A bullet hit the ground 6 inches from her hand. Clara, get down. Adrian's voice, raw with something that sounded like fear. She got Tony behind a shipping container and immediately pressed her palm against his thigh. Blood pulsed between her fingers, hot, fast, deadly. Stay with me, Tony, she commanded, ripping his belt free and fashioning a tourniquet. You don't get to die. You still owe me an apology for calling me sweetheart. He laughed weakly.
You're insane.
Probably. She tightened the tourniquet until the bleeding slowed. Not stopped. Never fully stopped with femoral wounds, but manageable. Survivable. The gunfire was dying down. Adrian's men had pushed the attackers back, but at a cost. She could see 3 bodies that weren't moving. Couldn't tell if they were friend or enemy. Then Adrian was there, kneeling beside her, his gun still drawn. You ran into the open, he said, voice tight. You could have been killed. So could Tony. I gave you an order. I don't follow orders anymore. Remember? Clara checked Tony's pulse. Weak but steady. He needs a hospital. Real surgery. I bought him time, but we have a doctor. Off the books, Adrian grabbed his phone, making the call, but his eyes never left her face. You're bleeding. Clara looked down. Her shoulder. She hadn't even felt it. Grazed by a bullet, shallow but still bleeding through her shirt. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Their faces were inches apart. Clara could see gold flecks in his gray eyes. Could smell his cologne mixed with gunpowder. Could feel the heat radiating off him. Anger or something else. She couldn't tell. Why did you do that? He asked quietly. Risk your life for one of my men? Because he's a person. Because I could save him, she paused. Because you would have done the same thing.
No.
I would have sacrificed one to save many. That's how you survive in this world. That's how you stop being human in this world. The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Adrian's hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropped. We need to leave.
Now.
The police will come. They made it back to the estate an hour later. The off-books doctor was already working on Tony and two others. Clara tried to help, but Adrian pulled her aside.
Medical room. Now.
She wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up. She followed him downstairs. He sat her on the exam table, role reversal, and grabbed antiseptic. His hands were surprisingly gentle as he cleaned her wound. You live like this every day? Clara asked quietly. Running from bullets? Watching people die? You call this surviving? Adrian's hands paused. I don't survive, Clara. His voice was soft, almost sad. I rule. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you look just as trapped as the rest of us. He finished bandaging her shoulder in silence. But when he was done, he didn't step away. That night, he said finally, when I had the nightmare, you asked when they started. Clara waited. After my father died. I was 19. He was killed in front of me, betrayed by his own brother. I inherited everything. The business, the violence, the fear. His eyes met hers. I haven't slept through the night in 12 years. Clara's throat tightened. Adrian. You make me want to be someone I'm not, he whispered. Someone who could walk away from all of this. Someone worthy of how you look at me. How do I look at you? Like I'm still human. Before she could respond, before she could process what was happening, his phone rang. The spell broke. Adrian stepped back, his mask sliding into place. We'll talk later, he said, and left. Clara sat alone in the medical room, her shoulder throbbing, her heart racing. She was falling for a monster who wanted to be a man. And she had no idea how to save either of them. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Clara was asleep in the guest room. She'd been staying at the estate more often lately, telling herself it was practical, knowing it was something else entirely. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Hello. Heavy breathing. Then a voice, distorted, mechanical. Your brother says hello. Clara's blood turned to ice. What? St. Catherine's Hospital. Room 304. We took him an hour ago.
Easy.
No one even noticed a pause. Funny how hospitals have such bad security. If you hurt him, that depends on you. We know you work for Moretti. We know you've been feeding him information about our operations. I don't know anything about. Don't lie. We have proof. Photos. Recordings. You're the leak. The voice was cold, methodical. Now you're going to fix this. Tonight. Bring Moretti to the address we text you.
Come alone.
Or the kid dies slow. The line went dead. Clara's hands shook as she threw on clothes. Her mind raced. This was wrong, all wrong. She wasn't a spy. She'd never leaked anything. She barely knew what Adrian's operations were. But Danny. She was reaching for her keys when her door burst open. Adrian stood there, flanked by Marco and 3 armed men. His face was stone. Give me your phone. Clara's heart stopped. Adrian, I can explain. Your phone. Now. She handed it over. He looked at the screen, at the unknown number, at the text that had just arrived with an address. How long? His voice was deadly quiet. How long what? How long have you been working with the Rossi family? I'm not. What are you talking about? Marco stepped forward, holding a tablet. On it. Photos. Clara meeting with men she didn't recognize. Clara on the phone outside the estate. Clara at the hospital, with a man in a leather jacket standing nearby. All fake. All fabricated. But convincing. We found the evidence an hour ago, Marco said. You've been selling us out since day one. The dock ambush? You knew about it. You warned them. That's insane. I saved Tony's life. Perfect cover, Marco spat. Earn our trust, get close to the boss, then betray us when it matters most. Clara looked at Adrian, desperate. You can't believe this. You know me. You know I would never. I don't know you, his words were ice. I knew a waitress who stayed calm during an ambush. I thought that made you brave. Turns out it just made you a good actress. Adrian, please. He pulled a gun. Clara's breath caught. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. They have Danny, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. They called. They took him from the hospital. They said I was the leak, and I had to bring you to an address or they'd kill him. Convenient story. It's the truth. Her voice broke. Why would I risk my brother's life for you? For any of this? You think I want to be here? You think I chose this? She was sobbing now, unable to stop. Check the hospital. Call them. Room 304. Daniel Evans. He's gone. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes.
Doubt.
Boss, it's obviously a trap, Marco said. She's trying to lure you. Call St. Catherine's, Adrian ordered.
Now.
Marco hesitated, then dialed. A tense minute passed. His face paled. The kid's gone. Taken from his room around midnight. Staff didn't see anything. The gun in Adrian's hand lowered slightly. Clara collapsed against the wall, her legs giving out. He's 16.
He's sick.
He's all I have left in this world. She looked up at Adrian through tears. You think I'd risk him? You think anything matters more than keeping him alive? Adrian stared at her, war raging behind his eyes. It's still a trap, Marco insisted. They took the kid to force her hand. She's still the leak. I'm not the leak. Clara's voice rose. Someone's framing me. Someone who wants you to kill me or wants me to lead you into an ambush. Can't you see that? Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then, Marco, your office.
Now.
Clara waited in her room, guarded. 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. When Adrian returned, his face was gray. He held Marco by the arm, roughly, violently. Marco's lip was bleeding. Tell her, Adrian commanded. Marco said nothing. Adrian slammed him against the wall. Tell her. It was me. Marco's voice was barely audible. I leaked the information. I sold you out to the Rossis. Clara's world tilted. Why? She whispered. Because he's weak. Marcos shouted, suddenly defiant. Ever since you came here, he's been soft.
Distracted.
More concerned with impressing some medic than running the family, he looked at Adrian with disgust. You used to be feared. Now you're pathetic. Adrian's fist connected with Marco's jaw.
Once. Twice.
The third punch dropped him. Where's the boy? Adrian's voice was murder. Marco laughed through bloody teeth. Rossi warehouse. Pier 7. But you're too late. They're expecting you. It's a kill box, he grinned. You go there, you die. You don't go, the kid dies. Either way, I win. Adrian turned to his men. Lock him in the cellar. I'll deal with him later. Then he looked at Clara, and the guilt in his eyes was devastating. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't save Danny.
No.
But I will. He grabbed his phone, barking orders. Get everyone. Every gun we have. We're going to war. It's a trap. You heard him. I don't care. Adrian's voice was steel. They took an innocent kid to get to me. They used him as a weapon. That's a line you don't cross. He moved toward the door. Stay here. Stay safe. I'll bring him back. No, Clara stood, wiping her tears, her voice steady despite everything. He's my brother. I'm coming with you. Clara, you don't get to protect me. Not anymore. Not after this. She grabbed her medical bag. You taught me that loyalty matters. That family matters. Well, Danny is my family. So either tie me up or accept that I'm coming. Adrian studied her face, the determination, the fury, the love. Finally, he nodded. Then stay close to me. No matter what happens. No matter what. They left together, racing toward a trap neither of them expected to survive. But for the first time in years, Clara wasn't running from death. She was running toward the only thing worth dying for. Pier 7 was a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, windows dark, silence heavy. Too silent. Clara could feel the trap waiting like a living thing. Adrian's convoy stopped 3 blocks away. 15 men, heavily armed, faces grim. They knew the odds. Thermal scans show at least 30 hostiles inside, Tony reported, his legs still bandaged from the last ambush. They're positioned on the catwalks. High ground. Kill zones at every entrance. And the boy? Adrian asked. Center of the warehouse. Tied to a chair. 2 guards. Clara's fingernails dug into her palms.
Danny. Alone.
Terrified. This is suicide, one of the men muttered. Adrian checked his gun. Then die well, he looked at Clara. Last chance. Stay in the car. Not happening. You're unarmed. Untrained for this kind of. I was a combat medic in Kandahar. I've walked through worse, she met his eyes. And he's my brother. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He pulled off his bulletproof vest and handed it to her. Adrian, no. Wear it. That's not a request, his voice was soft but absolute. If something happens to me, you get Danny out. Promise me. Clara wanted to argue. Instead, she put on the vest. I promise. They went in fast and loud. The front doors exploded inward. Flashbangs detonated. Adrian's men poured through the smoke like wraiths, and the warehouse erupted into chaos. Gunfire rained from above. 2 of Adrian's men dropped immediately. Clara stayed low, following Adrian's shadow as he moved with lethal precision, shooting, advancing, never hesitating. There. Tony pointed. Through the smoke and muzzle flashes, Clara saw him.
Danny.
Tied to a chair in the center of the floor, his head slumped forward.
No.
Please, God, no.
She ran.
Clara, wait. Adrian shouted. But she was already moving, crossing the open floor with bullets screaming past her. Training took over, serpentine pattern, staying unpredictable, using cover when she could find it. She reached Danny and dropped to her knees. His face was bruised, his breathing shallow, but alive. Danny, look at me. His eyes fluttered open. Clara? I've got you, baby. I've got you. She pulled out a knife, cutting the ropes with shaking hands. That's when she saw the red on Danny's chest. Laser sight. Get down. Adrian's voice. Clara threw herself over Danny as the shot rang out. Pain exploded in her back. Blunt, crushing. The vest caught the bullet, but the impact drove the air from her lungs. Then Adrian was there, returning fire at the sniper above. The man fell from the catwalk, tumbling through the darkness. Move.
Move.
Adrian grabbed Danny, hauling him up. Clara struggled to her feet, ribs screaming. They ran for the exit, Adrian's men providing cover. But the Rossi family had planned well. More shooters poured in from the side doors, cutting off their escape. We're pinned, Tony shouted. Adrian's eyes scanned the warehouse, calculating. Then he saw it, a service door, partially hidden behind stacked crates. There. Go. But between them and freedom stood 6 armed men. Adrian looked at Clara, at Danny barely conscious, at the impossible odds. And made a choice. Get him out, he told Clara.
What? No.
Take Danny and run. I'll hold them off. Adrian, that's suicide. I know, he smiled. Sad, gentle, real. But I told you. I keep my word, he pressed his gun into her hand.
Go. Now.
Clara's vision blurred with tears. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, he touched her face. Just once, thumb brushing away a tear. You reminded me what it felt like to be human. That's worth dying for. Then he stepped into the open and started shooting. Clara didn't remember the escape, clearly. Just fragments. Adrian's gunfire behind her. Tony appearing, helping carry Danny. The service door. The alley. the sound of sirens. And then silence. She turned back, but Tony held her arm. He's gone, Clara. We have to move.
No.
No, I have to. He made his choice. Don't waste it. They got Danny to a hospital, a real one, where doctors asked questions she didn't answer. The bullet wounds were superficial, the concussion minor. He'd survive. Clara sat beside his bed, numb, as police came and went. She told them nothing, just a worried sister whose brother was kidnapped.
She didn't know why.
Didn't know who. They didn't believe her, but they couldn't prove otherwise. 3 days later, Tony came to her apartment. He's alive, he said quietly. Clara's head snapped up. What?
Boss.
He's alive. Barely. Tony's face was grim. Took 4 bullets. Lost a lot of blood. But he's too stubborn to die. Relief crashed over her like a wave. Where is he? Somewhere safe. Recovering. Tony handed her an envelope. He wanted me to give you this. And to tell you, you can't see him again. What? Why not? Because the Rossi family knows about you now. About Danny. As long as you're connected to the boss, you're both targets. Tony's voice softened. He's giving you a way out, Clara. Take it. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside, discharge papers from her employment, a bank statement showing $500,000 deposited in her name. Danny's medical bills, all of them, marked paid in full. And a note in Adrian's handwriting. You stayed calm when the world burned. You showed me I could still feel. Now I'm showing you that I can still choose. Leave the city. Start over. Let Danny have a real life. And know that somewhere I'm doing the same. Clara pressed the note to her chest and wept. 2 days later, she and Danny disappeared. Adrian had given them freedom, even if it meant never seeing each other again. 6 months later, the coastal town of Seabrook was nothing like the city.
No sirens. No gunfire.
No shadows that moved with malicious intent. Just waves and salt air, and the kind of quiet that used to terrify Clara, but now felt like salvation. She worked at the local clinic, a small operation that served fishermen and retirees. Simple injuries. Routine checkups. Nothing that required bulletproof vests or morphine stolen from military hospitals. Danny was thriving. His hair had grown back, thick and dark. His cheeks had color. His latest scan showed remission, a word the doctors used cautiously, but Clara clung to like a lifeline. He attended the local high school now, made friends, joined the chess club. Sometimes Clara caught him laughing, and the sound was so pure it made her chest ache. This was the life she'd bought with blood and compromise. With Adrian's sacrifice and her own. She tried not to think about him. Tried not to wonder if he was alive, if he was healing, if he still had nightmares. But every night, she did. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. Clara had just finished her shift at the clinic and was walking home along the beach road when she saw it. Wedged in her mailbox, expensive black paper that didn't belong in a town where most mail was bills and grocery store flyers. No return address.
No postie.
Hand-delivered. Her heart stopped. She knew that shade of black. That weight of paper. Inside her cottage, with hands that trembled despite 6 months of peace, she opened it. A property deed fell out first. She stared at the document, confused. The cottage she was renting, now owned by Clara Evans. Paid in full. Transferred 3 days ago. Then, a hospital receipt. St. Catherine's Medical Center. Final balance for Daniel Evans, $000. Every remaining bill, every future treatment, every cost she'd been quietly budgeting for, erased. And finally, a letter. The handwriting was unmistakable. Clara, I'm not good with words. I communicate with bullets and silence and fear. But you deserve better than that. You stayed calm when the world was burning. While everyone else ran or screamed or died, you moved with purpose. You saved lives, including mine, though not in the way you think. I was drowning long before you met me. drowning in blood and choices I couldn't take back. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be human, to feel anything beyond rage or emptiness. Then you looked at me in that restaurant, through the smoke and chaos, and I saw something in your eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not fear, not worship,
Just.
recognition. Like you saw the man I used to be, the man I'd buried so deep I thought he was dead. You reminded me he wasn't. Every night you stayed, every time you challenged me, every moment you treated me like I was just Adrian, not the monster everyone else saw. You were pulling me back from an edge I didn't even know I was standing on. That night at the warehouse, when I stepped into that gunfire, everyone thinks I did it to be noble, to save you, and maybe that's partly true. But really, I did it because for the first time in 12 years, I wanted to be the hero instead of the villain. I wanted to be the man you saw when you looked at me. I survived, if you're wondering. 4 bullets, 3 surgeries, and enough blood loss to kill a normal person. But I'm not normal. You knew that. What you don't know is that I walked away. The family, the empire, all of it. I gave it to someone I trust, and I disappeared.
Just like you did.
I'm somewhere quiet now, learning how to sleep through the night, learning how to live without fear in my shadow, learning how to be the man you believed I could be. I think about you every day, about what we could have been in a different life, if we'd met differently, if we weren't both so broken. But maybe broken was the only way we could have understood each other. You saved my life twice, Clara. Once in that restaurant. Once when you showed me that humanity was still worth fighting for. So now I'm saving yours. The cottage is yours. Danny's medical care is covered forever. You're free. Both of you. Don't look for me. Don't try to find me. That part of my life is over, and you deserve better than a man still learning how to be good. But know this. Somewhere in this world, there's a man who learned to feel again because of you. Who sleeps without nightmares now because you showed him he was more than his worst choices. You stayed calm when I needed it most. And you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope.
Thank you. A.
Clara read the letter 3 times. Then she walked to the cliff overlooking the ocean, tears streaming down her face, not of grief, but of something more complicated. Sadness. Gratitude. Love for a man she could never have but would never forget. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere out there, in another quiet town, another coastal hideaway, Adrian Moretti was watching the same sunset. 2 broken souls who'd met in chaos. Who'd saved each other in the only way they knew how. Who'd learned that sometimes love meant walking away. Danny appeared beside her, healthy and whole, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. You okay? He asked. Clara folded the letter carefully and tucked it in her pocket. A piece of her past. A reminder of her strength. Yeah, she said softly. I am. They stood together, brother and sister, watching the waves.
Alive. Free. Safe.
And somewhere in the distance, a man with steel-gray eyes watched his own horizon and smiled. Not the smile of a Mafia boss, but the smile of a man who'd finally found peace. 2 separate paths. 2 separate lives. But forever connected by the moment they'd stayed calm when the world was burning and chose to save each other's humanity instead of their own hearts.